A function is a predefined formula that performs a calculation based on values specified by the user. For example, a simple function could total the values in 2 cells, or a more complex function could calculate repayments on a bank loan. Excel contains many built-in functions. These built-in functions are grouped into different categories, which can be accessed from the Formulas tab or ribbon. There are several categories visible when you access this ribbon. Select the More Functions option to view the others. These categories are organized so that you can locate the functions most relevant to your day-to-day requirements. For example, Excel offers functions for financial, date and time, and math calculations. The first element of a function formula is the name of the function. This takes the form of a single word, such as sum. The sum function adds all the values within a selected range of cells. As you've just learned, a function calculates data. This data or information is referred to as an argument. The data it accepts is also custom. You can add your own information to the formula to direct and control the action of the function. Like any other calculation, a function formula begins with an equal sign. You then need to write the function name. For example, equals followed by sum. The next step is to write the arguments. Arguments are contained within a pair of parentheses. So begin by typing an open parenthesis, then list the arguments. As an example, you could follow a sum function with the argument open parenthesis C2 colon C4. When you've finished typing your arguments, end your function formula with a closing parenthesis. An argument that instructs Excel to add all data in cells C2 to C4. When executed, this formula returns a result that calculates the values within this cell range. AdventureWorks sales data is contained in an Excel workbook called Annual Sales Totals. The workbook contains a worksheet called Sheet 1. This sheet contains 5 columns. The first column lists the months of the year, 1 month per row. The other 4 columns contain the names and data for each regional sales team. Each column contains 12 sales totals, 1 for each month. Let's begin by calculating the sales totals for Team A. First, you need to place the cursor on the cell where the result of your function must appear. Place your cursor on cell B14 underneath the sales data for Team A. This is the cell where the overall sales total must appear. Now you can write your function. First, type an equal sign. Then type the name of your function. In this instance, you need to add the data, so you can use a sum function. Function names are not case sensitive. You can type them in upper or lowercase. Once written, Excel displays them in uppercase. As you type the word sum, a list of suggested functions appears. This list is a useful shortcut for accessing functions quickly. But for now, you can continue typing the formula. Now that you've stated the name of your function, you need to outline your arguments. Type an open parenthesis. A floating help message appears with argument prompts. If the prompt is in bold, then the argument is required. If the argument is in square parentheses, then it is optional. In other words, it's not required for the function to work. In this instance, you're writing a custom argument. Type B2 colon B13. Then type a closing parenthesis to end your argument. The sum function and your custom argument instruct Excel to calculate or add the numeric total of all data in cells B2 to B13. Press Enter to execute the function. The result shows that Team A's sales total for the year was $971,000. Now that you've calculated the sales total for Team A, you can copy the function formula to the other cells in the row using the autofill shortcut. Select cell B14, position the mouse pointer over the bottom right-hand corner of the cursor to turn it into a black cross. Hold down the mouse button and drag the cursor to the right as far as cell E14. As it copies the data from cell to cell, Excel also adjusts the formula to total the cells in each column for the remaining teams. Lucas now has the sales totals for each of AdventureWorks' sales teams. Creating a formula with a function for the first time can be intimidating. How many arguments does it require? What's the correct syntax? Thankfully, Excel offers a useful insert function tool that provides a framework for creating a function formula. In this video, you'll explore the Insert Function tool and function categories and learn how to create a function. Over at AdventureWorks, the company is busy calculating the annual sales total for each regional team. The sales data is contained in a worksheet called Sheet 1. The worksheet lists all 4 teams and their respective sales totals for each month. Let's help AdventureWorks calculate each team's total sales using the Insert Function feature. Begin by positioning the cursor on cell B14. This is the cell in which your sales total must appear for Team A. Now you can access the Insert Function feature. There are 2 ways to open this feature. The first is by selecting the Insert Function button on the left-hand side of the Formulas ribbon. Or you can select the Insert Function option on the worksheet screen to the left of the formula bar. Selecting either one of these options opens the Insert Function dialog box. In the middle of this dialog box is a list of functions. You can navigate through these functions using the scroll bar. However, this is a brief list that doesn't contain all available functions. Above this list is a drop-down box with the heading Most Recently Used. To the left of this drop-down is a prompt called Or Select a Category. Because the category choice is set to Most Recently Used, the list underneath contains functions that you've recently used in your worksheet formulas. As you work through Excel, you'll most likely make frequent use of the same functions. Over time, this list will populate with your most used functions, providing a useful quick access shortcut. You can select each function in the list to display a short description of its purpose. In the bottom left of the dialog box is a blue hyperlink called Help on this function. This is a context-sensitive link. Select it to visit the help page for your selected function on the Microsoft support site. You can select another category to open a different list of functions. For example, you need to use the sum function to complete the calculation task for AdventureWorks. You can access the sum function from the Math and Trigonometry category. When you select this category, the list of available functions changes. You can learn more about which functions correspond to which categories in the additional resources. Remember that you can select a function for an explanation of what it does, or you can highlight a function name in the list. Then select the blue Help hyperlink for more detail. The function list is arranged alphabetically, so scroll down to the S section, select Sum, and then select OK. This action opens another dialog box called Function Arguments. There are 2 boxes at the top of this dialog labeled Number 1 and Number 2, respectively. Notice that the text Number 1 is bolded. This indicates that an entry is required here. The text Number 2 is not bolded, which indicates that it is optional. However, you might use it in a situation where you require a total for blocks of numbers at separate locations in the spreadsheet. In the AdventureWorks sheet, Excel has identified the block of numbers directly above your cursor position. So it's suggesting that you include the cell range B2 to B13 in your total. In the background on the formula bar, Excel has already constructed the calculation for you. It has included not only the cell references, but also the equal sign, the parenthesis, and the colon. If Excel has suggested the wrong block of cells, then you can select the Navigate button to select a different range or edit the formula. The Navigate button is an arrow pointing upwards at the right of the Number 1 box. Selecting this arrow temporarily collapses the dialog box and returns you to the spreadsheet so that you can change the selection. The navigation arrow to the right of the number box is now an arrow pointing downwards. Selecting this arrow restores the full Function Arguments dialog box. Just above the blue help link on this dialog is a formula result, which in this case is a total. You should also be aware of warning messages that could appear here. These warnings are often generated by errors that are created when working with more complex function formulas. You've now selected the required function, and you've made sure that the syntax is correct and targets the required data. Select OK to add the completed formula to the worksheet. When executed, this function formula generates a sales total of $971,000 for Team A. AdventureWorks can copy this formula across the row to generate sales totals for the other teams. Thanks to your use of the Insert Function feature, AdventureWorks now have the required sales data, and you should now be familiar with the function tool, understand its categories, and be able to make use of the tool to create a function formula.